and audio recorded. We'll move on to attendees and leave of absence. We have no leave of absence today, which is great, so everyone was here. We have Councillor St Ledger and Mayor Raven are in the building, so they'll come in soon, and Councillor Lane must be busy, but she'll come in a second. We'll move to confirmation of previous minutes. There is now a motion displayed on the screen to confirm the previous meeting minutes from the 10th of February 2026. When you have a moment, could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Heremiah. Seconded by Councillor Paul Jackson, I should say. Sorry, that's just stuck in the head there. I now open the floor to vote. That has been carried. We'll move to declarations of conflicts of interest. You are a yes, Councillor Fraser? Correct. I now refer to declarations of conflicts of interest. Do any councillors wish to raise and declare a conflict of interest today? There being none, we'll move straight into reports. We have 4 reports today. We'll kick off with first report is number 6.1, which is parking concerns in the Rochdale South Precinct. It's a public report, and we'll led away by General Manager Ms Megan Gould. All yours.
There we go. Good morning, councillors. Actually, Carl Bayer, Traffic Manager, is going to introduce a report for us.
Thank you. This report is in response to a request to report on the actions taken in terms of investigation for parking concerns in the Rochdale South Precinct around Centre Place, Beverley Avenue and those streets. It was prompted initially by complaints received when development occurred on the opposite side of Beverley Avenue from the, not Beverley Avenue, but Centre Place from the original neighbourhood shops, causing parking concerns there. There's been a number of consultations undertaken with the nearby streets as well as the shops in that precinct. And as a consequence, we've undertaken some changes to the parking along Centre Place to reduce the current 2 hour to 1 hour, and there's a couple of 30-minute bays as well. That was in response to 3 rounds of consultation, one with the neighbourhood, one through a have your say type consultation process, and another with the actual shops themselves. Since those parking restrictions were changed, we haven't received any complaints or issues concerning parking in that area. After that change went ahead, the Rochdale busway station also became operational, and there were concerns that parking would flow from there to the nearby streets. There's been no observed increase in parking in the nearby streets either. So, and even if there was, that would be probably restricted to Rothan Drive, which has been developed as part of the motorway upgrade works in recent times. A lot of those houses have disappeared, and there's actually plenty of on-street parking along Rothan Drive as well if it was to happen to have overflow parking. So at this point in time, we're happy to report that the changes have been effective, and there's no need for any further changes at this time. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr Bayer. Any questions? We believe we have one from Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Not so much a question, just I did speak to you yesterday about this. A resident on the weekend told me that that cars now are parking on School Road at the Rochdale bus station, and the bus station is absolutely full. So I went there yesterday, and sure enough, that is actually the case. So I'm going to foreshadow, and I don't need to change any recommendations or anything, that we look at the parking situation again in Rothan Drive, particularly around the residential area. So I will be putting an email to you directly about that, but I've got photographic evidence that cars are parking in School Road, and there's only so many cars that can park there, so it's only going to be a matter of probably weeks, with all the petrol prices going crazy, that we will have cars parked in the residential streets. Thank you.
Do you want to respond to that at all?
Thank you, through you, Mr Chair. Councillor, yeah, certainly we're aware that the bus station there is obviously a reasonably new station. We would anticipate that we would continue to see, I guess, growing patronage of that. So that will be something that we will keep an eye on into the future, and yeah, happy for the feedback.
Mayor Raven.
Thank you, and similar to Councillor Bradley's observations that it's already causing overflow, do park and rides, and probably for Carl, do park and rides normally put pressure on street parking over time?
They can do. Yep. Through the chair, yes, they can do. I think the only park and ride I can think of in the Logan area is the Hyperdome, and there are some nearby restrictions that might have been put in place to address that directly opposite the park and ride station. But generally, we haven't necessarily experienced that. There's also Browns Plains Park and Ride. Not aware of us having to put in restrictions in that area. But in response to the Rochdale station, as I mentioned during the report, there is still plenty of on-street parking along Roffin Drive, which has a shared path that leads directly across the School Road intersection to the busway station. So there is on-street parking supply at the moment that wouldn't necessarily interfere with the residents in the area, but we'll continue to monitor that situation. So.
Because it just seems like it's something that, if you knew it was going to happen, wouldn't you just get ahead of it to change people's behaviour early instead of waiting for it to become an issue? The council receives a whole bunch of complaints. It takes us a 3 to 6 month process to get the lines put in, and then people hark back to this meeting and go, you looked at it, you knew it could have happened, why didn't you just do it the first time? So I guess the question is, could we not be proactive rather than, and maybe that's what Councillor Bradley's intending on doing, it looks like she's nodding to say yes, to get ahead of it so that we change people's behaviour early before they get into the habit of parking in places that impact residents.
Through the chair again, as I said, I believe any overflow parking will start to happen on Roffin Drive, which will not impact residents directly, and we would encourage that to be the first area to take on that parking. I think once it gets beyond that, people may start to think whether they'll make a judgment as to whether it's too far to actually walk to the busway station. So until it actually starts to occur, I would be very hesitant to start implementing parking changes that has other impacts on the residents. And so I think status quo is the way to go at this point in time. That's my recommendation.
Any answers with rhyming are excellent answers, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. So it'll be up on the board in a minute. Someone's happy to move that? That's if you're happy to move the recommendation or the noting of it. Thank you, Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor St Ledger. Does anyone wish to speak to it? Doing none, I'll ask you to vote. That has been carried unanimous, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Frey, the girls are onto it, so they're giving me a bit of a nod on you, mate, but I appreciate it. It's like I'm being at the golf. And next report is item 6.2, which is Coolball Street Road Reserve behind a medical practice. It's a public report. Again, it's Ms Megan Gould, so I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. So this report is in response to an e-petition that council received regarding an unmade vacant road reserve that surrounds the Rochdale South Medical Centre in Coolball Street. The area is used as overflow parking for the centre, and it's also a secondary access for some of the adjacent properties. We understand that the owners would like the area to be better maintained for use as that parking overflow attached to the centre. For council, given that it's a road reserve that really only serves the medical centre and overflow parking, it's not currently on our maintenance program. So the owners have requested that council either undertake maintenance on that road reserve or that the body corporate be allowed to purchase the land so that they can maintain it. Permanent closure and purchase of the land is the directorate's preferred option in this case. Purchase of the land would be a direct negotiation between the state government and the owners or the body corporate, whoever makes the application, and council would be engaged as a stakeholder as the road manager. So the recommendation of the report is that council provides in-principle support to the owners to proceed with an application to the state. The state would manage the process, including engagement with ourselves and the local properties, and we'd be happy to take any questions on that one. Thank you.
Does any councillors have any questions? Councillor Bradley?
Thank you, through the chair. I have expressed this to the director and, Executive General Manager for Transport Services, Mr Darryl Riley, and also to the CEO this morning, that I was disappointed that the history was not included in this report. There is a very extensive history with this particular scenario, and I hope other councillors don't experience these bad decisions from previous councils in their areas. And at one stage, the surrounding property owners were actually consulted and offered to purchase some of this land, and that's not actually within the body of this report at all. So I'm very disappointed about that this is all happening without their knowledge, and as per the report says, there's a number who have access to their private properties via this road reserve. And while, maybe they are illegal, I'm not going to judge that, but I think at the very least they should be consulted or at least informed.
Through you, Mr Chair. Certainly agree that the adjoining property owners have a need to actually be informed in regards to that. There has been history, as you've noted. We did go back and search for the level of correspondence that we could actually find for those adjoining property owners, and we struggled to actually find that. But
that's because it was sent from me.
But I'm not doubting that there was engagement with them, because any engagement with the state in regards to the tenureship of the land will have a mandated process with the state that those property owners must be engaged. It's happened on all the other applications that we've seen for similar type arrangements, and talk about the variable options for what would come with the closure. Part of the challenge for us, if we were to engage with the property owners in advance of the medical centre actually making an application, is that the medical centre could make one of a few different types of applications. They could ask for a permanent closure and for the sale of that land. They could ask for a temporary closure on the land and then look to negotiate a lease with the state for access to the land. In part, the issue for us would be if we engage with the residents directly in advance of them making that application, we're not across what their final application or arrangements might actually be. So would certainly agree that those residents need to be involved, and they need to have opportunity to put their case to the state in regards to what they think should happen with that parcel of land, and we'd certainly be looking for the state to do that if an application is forthcoming.
This particular matter goes back to Pam Parker's day as mayor as well. Like I said, there's a very, very long history. I do recall even the parks manager getting involved at one, because there are trees and vegetation within that road reserve as well, and the particular manager writing to someone to see if we could sell the land even. So it's been a very long process, and again, I'm really disappointed that history is not within this report. I won't always be here, and that intellectual knowledge won't be around. Very disappointed.
Thank you, Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much. If Councillor Bradley's saying that there's information missing from this, do we want to pull it and bring it back for council next week so that we have an opportunity to understand the history of it? If there's 6 people who've used this road reserve as an access to their properties, obviously having that knowledge would be, and their thoughts on it would be helpful before we make a decision. Just asking.
I'll still test the original motion. If it doesn't get up, that can be an alternative. We've got Councillor Hall, Councillor Jackson, then
Thank you, through the chair. I think this might be probably more of a question to the councillor Bradley, just picking her brain on some local knowledge. So these properties, they are dual frontage. They appear to be dual entry properties where they have access from the front and they have access at the back through this. So if this property was to be sold to the complex, to the body corporate of that complex, would council impose something upon those property owners to change that entrance, those rear entrances? Would there be a requirement for them to remove those entrances from onto the private property?
Probably more of a question to the staff than it is to Councillor Bradley, I'd say. Because if it's a legal question,
Well, the question was just to for Lisa Bradley was just to confirm that they were dual entry properties.
Yep.
Okay, and this next question is for the staff on will there be a legal requirement for those property owners to change their gating arrangement on the rear of their properties?
And I guess that's the complexity of the matter in terms of what the state would actually condition in regards to a sale. We could only speculate on that. I don't know that. Certainly, I would expect the state would take submissions from those residents in regards to having access to that road reserve. Certainly, anywhere where we've seen road closures or land closures in the past, that's been part of the state standard process is to write to those properties. Now, in terms of a lot of those situations where we see them closing road reserves, they also talk to those property owners around whether they actually have an interest in regards to the land as well, which I think the councillor suggested as well, that there may have been previous discussions with property owners in the past to that extent too. We would have an opportunity to provide commentary at the time as a interested party. We could certainly, as an organisation, be providing advice that we expect that the consideration be given to those residents around their access and what that may be. I don't believe on this occasion that we have notable services within that road reserve, but typically some locations where we've had requests for closure of road reserves and say we've had a water main in there, we would write and actually ask for an easement to be provided to us in regards to that infrastructure. I don't know and I can't speculate what might happen in regards to submissions from those property owners if they were to contemplate a closure around whether they might try and facilitate some other access arrangements, but that would be, I guess, a matter that would be considered at the time.
And just following up from that, Councillor Bradley, you mentioned that those property owners in the past had considered purchasing that property and having it as a shared communal driveway for themselves. Was that correct?
Through the chair, if I may. Yeah, they were consulted about possibly purchasing, and my understanding, no one did put their hand up because it wasn't going to be closed.
So potentially there could be more than one buyer for this this land.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're getting into, I guess, the part which is getting speculative around what applications might be made to the state and how the state may proceed with those, and I guess that's the complication in this regard to this report. The real decision around what transpires with the land will be a state decision, not a council decision. We really did take the question that was being asked by the medical centre was, did we have any violent opposition to them making the application? And we've suggested that in principle we don't have a violent application to them making the application, but the detail would have to be negotiated at the time and would have to involve all of the relevant stakeholders.
Thank you. No further questions, and thank you to the area councillor for answering those questions.
Councillor Bradley, was this directly to that? Just, yeah.
If I may, through the chair, I'm just curious if, in principle support, is it possible within this to ask that they consult with the surrounding property owners, or is that something that council couldn't do?
We could certainly be putting a position to say that would be our understanding that the state would engage with the adjoining property owners if they are in receipt of an application. Yes, we would expect them to do that. To voice that expectation again would not be an untenable thing to do, not unreasonable.
Sorry, just
Yeah, we
I'm a bit confused. So the state would automatically do that. Is that correct?
So their process, as I understand it, includes writing to everybody who has a relevant interest, which is why they write to us. So they write to council because it is a road reserve, because we have an interest. All occasions I've seen in the past, they've written to all adjoining property owners to land which is
Okay.
closed, and I believe it's written in their process. So us reminding them, we're not actually writing to the state. We would be writing back to the medical centre.
Right.
We could certainly advise the medical centre that we would expect that the adjoining property owners would be considered in the matter.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, so there's no application before us. We're not approving anything. This is in principle support. Does this come back to us at any other point? This is our only opportunity to comment on it.
We would bring the report back to committee when we get a correspondence from the state to say that they're considering doing a closure.
Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Chair. Could I please just ask, why is a council resolution today necessary for this to progress?
There was a petition to council, and we need to have an action in regards to the petition. There isn't a requirement of an in-principle agreement for us, for the property owner, for the medical centre to make an application. They did not have to come to us in the first instance. They could have gone straight to the state and have made an application. They made a petition to council, which included a request around maintenance as well, but it is an unmade road reserve which we've never constructed and we haven't maintained. So to that extent, that is included in the detail of the report, but no, they don't actually need a support from us to be able to make the application. They can make the application.
Okay, so I feel a little bit uncomfortable about voting in favour of something that is not actually council's business. I'm sort of, I don't know, usually when we get a petition, I would imagine that we would receive the petition and give helpful advice to the stakeholders to speak to the state. But I can't see that is the recommendation on this report. So is there a reason that's made that's given distinction for that?
So you wondering why we have to give principal support?
Well, in principle support seems to me to be kind of well, is it an official endorsement, or is it like a thumbs up? We've got no problem with you applying. I just don't know why we're voting on this today.
It is a decision of council. There is no requirement that we have to give in principle support. It is only probably some prior advice as to whether there will be some support. So it doesn't have to have an in principle support of council. No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Herremeier.
Thank you, and I have a couple of questions to understand this a bit more. So when this area was built in the 70s, there was a road reserve that was mapped out. And just like many areas, sometimes a road doesn't get built on a road reserve that was mapped out. So we're left with this awkward road reserve that council does not currently have an intent to turn into a road, and council does not currently maintain, but council holds liability over. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what can happen is that people and businesses can purchase road reserves, but from reading this report, my understanding of what it says is that for someone to purchase a road reserve, it goes through the state government, but as the local road authority, we sign off on the permit to close that road reserve, which is a requirement before they can purchase it. Is that correct?
They would ask us for input on the closure as a relevant stakeholder, because we are the road authority in that case. They would also write to any other agency that had an interest in that land. So let's assume if there was Energex power running through that road reserve, they would also write to Energex and ask them, do they have any matters that they would like to have considered in the state's decision in regards to that land. Similarly, if we saw telecommunications cables running through there. So we're one of many stakeholders. We're not the only ones, but they would take into consideration advice from all stakeholders, and adjoining property owners are also stakeholders. Yep.
Okay, so we're a stakeholder, but we're not the final decision maker.
No.
However, council does have an obligation to act in good faith. So if we're asked for feedback, council tends to provide it as a stakeholder. And the position in this is that the Transport Department, your department, feels like it's not appropriate for council to own this land anymore as it's not being maintained and council holds liability. That's accurate? Yes. Okay, so my approach to it is, since we're not the ultimate decision maker, I agree with the sentiment that why are we even talking about this? But at the same hand, the council does have a responsibility to act in good faith when we're a stakeholder. So my attitude to this is that if council determines that we don't want to own this road reserve anymore because it costs ratepayers to maintain it, and it costs ratepayers and potential legal fees in the future for any liability that land we didn't maintain, we should provide, if that's the position, we should provide in principle support, but not for a specific property owner to purchase it. Looking at the map of this property, there's a medical centre, there's one concrete access way. It doesn't seem like this property has two entryways. It seems like it only has one, to a car park at the front. Then there's the medical centre building, and then there's this road reserve that has its own entryway, I believe. Now, and then there's houses at the back in the medical centre after the road reserve. So the debate, it seems, would be whether or not the state government lets the medical centre purchase the road reserve and amalgamate it into their property, or it lets the neighbours purchase it and amalgamate it into their backyard. Now, if council sees that as some property that council shouldn't own anymore, we shouldn't preference either property owner. Council should just say we provide in principle support that it's not a good idea for council to own this piece of land anymore. However, we're not preferencing anyone. Let all the property owners have a fair go, put their argument to state government, and then that decision maker can choose. I think that's equal, I think that's fair, and I think that meets council's obligation to act in good faith.
Do you want to talk to that, or did you want to talk? You don't have to, no. Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. My notes are along the same lines as Councillor Heremeyer's, in that I agree that I think all stakeholders need to be engaged before providing support to a particular stakeholder. My thought process is happy to test the motion that's on the screen, but could we, if it doesn't get support, receive the reports so that we don't show a bias on supporting a particular stakeholder until after all stakeholders have been engaged, and then we can provide support.
As the chair, I'll test the motion, so I'm happy with I'll test the motion. Councillor Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Mr Chair, through you. And as Councillor Bradley alluded to, and she was asking questions around what the process was, and as Councillors Herremeyer and Wilcox have just said, it seems unusual that we would provide in principle support for an application rather than in principle support for the sale of the land, right? Because we have no interest in an individual application. We just have interest in the meta purpose of what that land is. And so I think, and I note later on in this committee we'll be debating the supplemental meeting code, which would let us foreshadow a motion, which would be very useful in this particular instance when we get to governance. But without having a formal way to foreshadow a motion, I think if you just changed it to in principle support for the sale of the road and all stakeholders be consulted as part of that process, and that's us providing good faith feedback, protects the interests of the resident and of the applicant, and then the state government can do their job and we can just say that we're happy not to own the road anymore.
Thank you, Mayor Raven. They're 2 steps ahead of you. They're already working on that. So if we have no more questions, happy to test the recommendation on the board. Do we have a mover for the recommendation? Recommendation has failed. Just give us a couple of minutes to work on the alternate recommendation. Councillor Bradley, it's almost ready. As divisional councillor, can you give you first chop at that to look at it and see if you're happy with it?
If I may, through the chair, I'm actually happy with the sentiment that has been expressed.
Thank you, councillors. So you'll see an alternate recommendation on the board. Spelled principal wrong.
I think it's PLE.
But because basically, well, the staff can explain it, we don't have to get involved in the sale, we're just basically proving it for the road to be closed, because that's our part of it. Did you want to go into that further, Darryl, if needed? Does anyone want Mr. Riley to go further into why we've written that? Mayor Raven? I'm going to hit the buzzer on you soon.
So that is the registered address, I guess. Could you just make sure that that's the registered address? Yep. And just make it clear that it's the road reserved, and probably the language, with your indulgence, Mr. Chair, language probably council provides in principles for the state to consider the closure of the road reserve. Oh, whoops. Sorry, I did all that off mic. My bad.
Councillors, we're just going to we're actually going to defer it to full council next week, just because we make the address is actually the medical centre. We don't want to shut their road. Don't think you'd appreciate that one, Councillor Bradley. So we'll put it up in a motion in a minute to defer it to full council next week, just to get the wording right and the address. We didn't do it half an hour ago because we would rather get it over and done with while we were here. That's what the staff wanted.
Trying to save you time.
Trying to streamline your day, Councillor Lane. There's a motion up on the board. Someone can read that and have a mover of that motion. Thank you, Councillor Lane. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bradley, does anyone wish to speak to it? There shouldn't be. You spoke enough. All those in favour? Councillor Fraser, how do you vote?
4 as well.
Thank you. Being carried unanimously. We move on to item 6.3, proposed endorsement of the new TMR Queensland Cycle Network Plan. This is a public report. Ms Megan Gould, you've gone for the trifecta today, so over to you.
And again, I'm deferring to,
Welcome, Mr McKenna.
yes, Chris McKenna, Manager, Transport and Infrastructure Planning.
Good morning, councillors. The Department of Transport and Main Roads maintains a principal cycle network plan for each of the regions in Queensland. The current PCNP dates back to 2016, and in 2022 the state commenced a process to renew that as part of a consolidated Queensland-wide Queensland Cycle Network Plan. This report seeks council's endorsement to proceed with the plan as the state has prepared. They've been through some consultation with council officers and the community and councillors a couple of years ago as well. There's too many changes in the report to go through in detail, but broadly, the summary of those is that there's considerable additions within the growth areas of the city, and also linking different parts of the city, such as Flagstone, into the rest of the network. And The state has also included connections alongside the key state transport corridors like the V1 alongside the motorway and the active transport corridor alongside the railway line as well. So yes, this report isn't necessarily seeking council's endorsement of the plan as it sits, but endorsement for the state to proceed to adopt the plan, which will allow council to be eligible for active transport grant funding.
Okay, we have three so far. Mayor Raven first.
Thanks, Chris. You covered it pretty well, but just for the record, the state removed some things that we really, really wanted. So this isn't our endorsed list, this is their endorsed list. We'd always love to see more active transport, especially along our busy road corridors and where there is existing public transport, but we acknowledge that if we don't endorse their list, then we can't apply for their funding to build those active transport corridors. So we're between a rock and a hard place, but we always like to get money from the state government. So very happy to support it with that in mind, but would love to see all of the recommendations that council put forward be included because they're based on feedback from the community.
So it's on that, Mayor Raven. So we need to endorse this to get the money. Thank you, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. On page 44, I'm just curious as to the removal of a particular shared pathway that is actually physically there between along the widened M1 on the Rochdale South side. So it goes from Rochdale Road all the way to the new bus station at Rochdale Station in Brisbane. So it's actually physically there.
Yeah, I'm happy to comment on that. So that was one of the linkages which we requested the state to include,
There you go.
but they declined to. So with the construction of the V1 alongside the motorway through Rochdale South, they transferred a previous marked line for the cycle network to the V1, and despite our requests, they refused to add an additional one on the opposite side of the motorway to represent the pathway that they constructed as part of the motorway upgrade alongside Rochdale Road and Rothen Drive. There was a similar instance in Shayla Park alongside Mungaree Drive where they removed a existing bit of the cycle network in order to have the future alignment of the V1 through that corridor.
Sorry, if I can just clarify on that though. In terms of removal, that's removal from being part of the principal cycle network. It's not removal of the actual infrastructure on the ground. Yeah, yeah.
Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Couple of questions. Do we know when the priority route maps will be developed from this network, and do we need to be advocating to get as many Logan routes included as part of priority A and B?
We don't have a timeline from the state on how they'll be proceeding with priorities for the network itself, or even if they will be. I'll note that the current principal cycle network plan, when that was first adopted, didn't include priorities. That was an addendum which came 5 years after the fact.
Okay.
So absolutely, we would be wanting to advocate and make some priorities around what we would like to see developed first. We'll be looking to do an internal piece around how the cycle network develops over the coming year or two to understand what exactly those priorities should be, and we'll bring that to council for endorsement.
And we'll also be advocating, obviously, for more funding in that space because, I mean, it said 341,000 per year over the last 6 years, which is great, but that hardly does a footpath these days. Like, that's nothing compared to when you look at the network and what we've got to deliver. So, yeah, I'd like to think we can get on that advocacy bandwagon again to try and get a whole lot more funding in that space if we're going to actually deliver anything substantial in that area. The other one I just wanted to ask you about was, I noted in there about Mount Cotton Road between Beenleigh Redland Bay Road and Woodaroo, which was noted. Does that mean there's no plans to put a pathway along there as part of the upgrade to Mount Cotton Road? Because I was kind of, they've put this footpath in front of the schools on Beenleigh Redland Bay Road, which goes nowhere. and I get blamed for it all the time, but it wasn't us that did it. But currently, I'm waiting for that section of road to be done on Mount Cotton Road so that I can then link it to council pathways, which will then create that connectivity. But when they said they've pulled that, I noticed it was noted in there that that area is not included in that cycle network anymore. So is that something we need to again try and, I mean, I know you guys tried to change it, but what can we do in that space, I guess?
So as Mount Cotton Road's a state-controlled road, I'm unable to comment whether they'll be planning on providing a footpath along there. Certainly that is something that we would advocate for. We did, as part of the consultation, request that that linkage be included, particularly for the regional connectivity that it would provide with the planned future Coomera Connector Bridge at the bottom end of Mount Cotton Road. So yes, that is something that we would like to see, particularly where it can connect to local networks.
Okay, and maybe something I need to talk to the state about, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stemp. Councillor Hall.
Unless any of the other councillors can persuade me otherwise, I'm actually quite liking the list that they've actually have here. Considering that, you know, in Bar Scrub, we haven't really ever been considered for anything in terms of a cycleway. I'm not too sure if the state understands what expense will probably be required to put a cycle network there, because the roads there just aren't wide enough as they stand. And I think you're going to have the same problem in Flagstone and Greenbank, that the roads there just aren't wide enough to support a cycle network. So this would be millions upon millions of dollars if they were to go forward. But I'm more than happy to help out wherever I can and advocate. And we've certainly got the designs down for some footpath networks through that area. Happy to come to the table as the area councillor in support of this, unless councillor here can persuade me otherwise. Thank you.
Councillors would do that, Councillor Hall. Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. Yes, when I did see the list, I was like, ooh, some of these roads are a bit odd for me, but I like the fact they're in there. McTaggart Road, I'm a bit baffled as to why that's there. It's not a connector road, it actually doesn't connect, and it's actually part dirt. So, not sure why that one's even in there. That one should probably just get taken out if we can. Like, I know I'm fine to take that one out. The residents would probably be happy for that as well. It's not going to be a connector for at least 30 odd years. The other roads are great, they're fine. Good to know, because I've run a footpath now the whole way down Pub Lane, which is terrific. So it's good to know that I'm on the right track and I'm connecting the right roads with pathways and that sort of thing. I would have liked to have seen the ones that they took out of Flagstone, because they eventually will be all the connector roads and that sort of thing. And my goal is to get the whole of Division 11 connected from one end to the other with a footpath. And I know that's pie in the sky and it's going to take me many, many years. But I would just say, just take out McTaggart, because it's not a connector road.
Did you, Miro?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My hand went up because they're not asking us for feedback. They're like, endorse this or don't apply. This is what they're saying to us. It's a pretty...
If we don't have to apply.
Well, we don't have to apply for anything, but we can't apply for anything if we don't endorse them. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Lane.
Thank you very much for you, Mr. Chair. So in reading this, I went from 0 to rage in 2.2 seconds. And the reason why I did that is on the 8th of September 2022, a business case was put to the federal government for the Gold Coast Faster Rail Currabee to Beenleigh section, and in it was an active transport corridor. People lost their homes because of this active transport corridor. They lost their homes. They were literally told, you are going because we are putting an active corridor from Currabee to Beenleigh. And then in June 2025, we had the new Minister for Transport at Woodridge Train Station, who said active transport is great. We're doing this wonderful new station, and it is. It's a beautiful new station. 17th of November, a release came out saying active transport is an important part of the Gold Coast Faster Rail Corridor. And then by the 21st of December, we have the Bicycle User Group telling us that they've pulled the funding, and in fact they did pull the funding from Currabee to Loganlea. So my entire division, where homes were lost, where people lost where they'd lived for 50 odd years, was a waste of time and a waste of their money, and it was heartbreak for them. So I'm pretty filthy over this report. I'll be really honest about that. I'm not impressed by it in any way, shape or form. I know that we need to approve it to apply for the money, but this is going to cost our council a lot more money because they didn't take into consideration that putting active transport cycle back onto Railway Parade, which has seen an increase of 8,000 cars a day on that road, will have significant impact. They're taking part of the reserve and we won't have enough room to put a cycle lane on there unless we take on-street parking away. Jacaranda Avenue, no space for it. It was going to run behind the homes. It was going to be a safe and active corridor for our local community, and that's no longer happening. I'm absolutely filthy over this. But then to top it off, they decide that it's going to run down Barden Road. They just opened Gilmore Road, and the Hoons are loving having Gilmore Road open so they can go to and from to do the hooning activity. But instead of putting the bike corridor down through the industrial estate where there's plenty of wide shoulders, they run it down Barden Road. Now, at the bottom end of Barden Road, between Lingrove and Dewars, there are no shoulders. So again, this is costing ratepayers money to endorse a program that basically doesn't do our community any good. It's going to cost us a bucket load just in my division alone to keep people safe on a bicycle network. We've come up with a number of ideas where I've raised this with traffic engineers about ideas for putting a cycle network in, and quite frankly, it costs a bucket load. So I'm going to walk out of the room. I'm not even voting on this because I can't in good conscience say to people that lost their homes, you lost your home for no bloody reason. Excuse my language, sorry, Mr Chair, but
You
I'm
can
just
offend me with
filthy on it.
language, you're doing really well.
I'm just filthy on it, so, yeah. It is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Lane. Just on that, so is there any pressure on us or obligation from us to, if we endorse this, to actually start? There's no funding source for it, right? All full paths are from local infrastructure money, so we endorse this. They've got this pie in the sky thing that obviously councillor Lane is unhappy with, and rightly so. There's no obligation on us to go, okay, we have to go build this thing now, is there? So there's no timeline on this. So when we talk about the funding, Mayor Raven, like, is there a timeline where they want us to do something to receive that money?
No, there's not. And in terms of implementation of the cycle network plan, the state active travel grants in total $15 million per year across the entire state. So you're quite right, councillors, to identify that this won't be delivered anytime soon in whole. It's about providing a sort of strategic high-level direction. And I concur with some of, I understand councillor Lane's objections, particularly in relation to the active transport corridor through her area as well.
So the grant gets up, we get the money. How much money do you think we'll get hypothetically, and what are we supposed to do with it?
If the plan's supported, it doesn't guarantee us any money. It's not actually a allocation of funding per year. It's a position that basically says if we make looking to make application for a project which would be on the list, that we can actually do that. So it doesn't actually guarantee funding flow from the state to us.
I get that, but if we support it,
we can make application.
we can make application for it to get some more money, or only the money that's in that pool, which is, like you said, not enough. Councillor Hall, and then it was Councillor Jackson.
Thank you through the chair. Look, I understand Councillor Lane's unhappiness with this, and I can also understand she's a fierce fighter for her community. So whenever something is taken away from her community or not going to go forward, I can understand she'll be frustrated and upset. But all those roads, all those locations she mentioned, they all have areas for people to walk, to travel, to walk on foot. The roads in my division in Bar Scrub that are mentioned here, Tees Road, Prangley Road, Bar Scrub Road, Manor Road, Hine Road, there's nowhere to walk. There's no pedestrian access. There's no pedestrian travel. It's all road. And there's an awkward situation here at the moment where you have state schools, and because the residents' children in those areas live too close to those state schools, they don't get a bus service. But they still walk from where they live to those schools. Where do they walk? They walk on the road.
Just,
They're
I'll
walking
pull,
right
you up, I'll pull you up there, councillor Hall, because I know you're going with it. I just want to direct the executive general manager. Does this money, what councillor Hall's saying was this, if we get this grant, will it go to putting footpaths where he wants his kids to walk?
The cost of putting in those
So,
footpaths,
councillor Hall, I've stopped you there for a second and just get an answer from the staff.
So the plan as it stands is only a principal cycle network, which is a planning document for the state. It's not a funding source that they are saying that they will build anything on that list. It's basically saying, in terms of where they would consider cycle networks to go, these are the locations that they would consider. So there is no funding attached to the back of it. There is no guarantee that they're going to build any of the infrastructure that's actually shown on the plan. It is really a strategic planning document only.
I concur, but everything starts from a plan, okay? And in principle, we can give support and hopefully those plans will eventually become roads. But the cost of putting in footpaths for those areas would far exceed whatever divisional council expenditure I would have. Far exceed it. So whatever support the state can give us in terms of getting these paths in place would be great. And I'm even more focused towards supporting this now.
Thank you, councillor Hall. Councillor Jackson.
Am I right in understanding the state wouldn't build a metre of it? We're the only ones who build these footpaths, but there'll be state funding that can help do that. But we would set the priorities.
In principle, correct. The one thing that's different to that, which ties back to councillor Lane's comments, is we would have an expectation that if the state is actually building infrastructure, that they would actually provide the networks that are actually shown on the connection, on this plan, when they're providing that infrastructure. So I'm more than sympathetic to councillor Lane's position that the state gave an undertaking to provide active transport along the rail corridor with the faster rail. Our officers that are actually on that working group that are working with faster rail have been very forthcoming that it is council's expectation that the commitment they gave to providing that corridor should be provided with the rail project that's currently underway. They certainly have come out and made statements contrary to that, which we find particularly disappointing as well. It would have provided a very strategic spine through the centre of the city, which allows us to build more of our actual site network attached to that. So I'm quite disappointed, I would have to say as well, with councillor Lane, because it should be the document that endorses if they're actually providing something on the network, whether it be rail or road, that they would also meet the expectation that says in the plan.
Thank you, councillor Murphy. Then I'm going to wrap it up and test it.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you for letting me have a say. I'm happy to support this, but could I please get noted that the V1 only goes to Logan Home? It doesn't go to the end of Logan as itself. They still see Eagleby, B and Lee as part of the Gold Coast. So we need to push that V1 down to the edge of Logan boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Murphy. There's a motion up on the board. If you take your time when you're ready, councillor Hall's already moved it. Councillor Murphy has seconded it. All those in favour? Oh, does anyone want to talk to the motion? No, you've all spoken. All those in favour, please put your hand up. So can we please go around the room?
For. Against. For.
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 For. For. For.
For.
Against. So the motion has been carried. And Tim's for? Yeah. Yeah, he's for. Yeah. So that brings the end to Ms Megan Gould. Does anyone have any GB for Ms Megan Gould at all? Do you have any for us? And Mr Gerard Briley, sorry mate, I meant to get you at the start, so you've been cooped up in here the whole time. Do you have any GB, and does anyone have any GB for the Executive General, whatever we call it these days, of water? No, thank you. We move on to our last report. And one of the twins is up here, Mr Paul Wilson. So we have a capital roadworks and drainage program quarterly report, October to December 2025, public report. Over to you, Mr Wilson.
Through the chair, good morning, Mayor and councillors. I'm very conscious of time, so I'm happy to take this report as read, and we'll take any questions.
Councillor Murphy, you're up.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the report. I just want to ask, with regards to the stormwater drainage under stage 1 to 5 with Kelly Street catchment in Eagleby, the drainage project, is that near completion or has the work been completed?
Through the chair. So those works, the actual drainage works are complete. They are just tidying up the park where the site compound was, and then we're finished.
At Bradley Park there?
Yep.
Yeah, we've suffered significant wet weather and there has been a little bit of die. I have been speaking to the family that actually has named that park and let them know of the progress. So we're not that far away from having it completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Through you, I just want to get some clarity after the meeting's not unnecessary now. It was noted there was 2.1 million on the upgrade and enhancement of shared pedestrian paths, cycleways and other infrastructure delivered. Just wanted to know where that was, please, after the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take that on notice and come back
Thanks
to you.
very much.
Yep.
Sorry, Councillor Brad, did you have your hand up before you just doing your hair? Because the corner of my eye I seen that and I wasn't sure. Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify, page 2 of your report, significant projects underway in the quarter include Teviot Road upgrade, Middle Road to Greenbank Road, stage 1A. That's a bit obscure for me because it says Middle Road to Greenbank Road, or are we just looking at page 10 of the report, which is the Hub Lane to north of Leanne Court?
Can you just confirm the page number in the report?
So it's page 2 of 5, and then it's page 10 of your PowerPoint. Page 104 altogether.
Yeah, just to clarify, Councillor Wilcox through the chair. So the stage 1A is actually part of that overall Middle Road to Greenbank project. So it is just the delivery of the Leanne Court intersection.
Lovely. Other thing, do I have a roads notification? I've asked this a couple of times, I haven't got it yet, for the extra widening bit opposite Woolworths. I noticed there's a compound set up, there's a hell of a lot of bollards, there's like a graveyard of bollards. I don't know when they're starting work. That's all to notify the community.
So those works were meant to commence this week, but the wet weather has held them up. We'll come back to you with an exact date.
That would be great so that I can let community know. And one other question. So within the report, sorry, let me just get to it. In the rehab projects in quarter two, is that just up to June this year or?
So quarter 2 is October to December. So it's the first half of the financial year.
Okay, awesome. Do we have another list that's coming for 26, 27 to endorse soon? I'm just wondering where Thompson Road is on a list.
I'll take that on notice and come back to you.
Have no more questions? Happy to move it. Councillor Lane, is there a seconder? Councillor St Ledger, is anyone wish to speak to it? Being none, all those vote please. Councillor Fraser? Thank you, that has been carried. Thank you, Mr Wilson. That concludes the agenda for today. Does anyone have any general business for the Executive General Manager, Mr Darryl Riley? Councillor Hermeyer? And Councillor Hermeyer, thank you for the way you put it forward beforehand and notified the staff and makes things a lot more efficient, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the Director of the Roads Department for his time yesterday. I think it was over 90 minutes stuck in a stuffy meeting room, but we went over pricing of bitumen, pricing of concrete, project management. We went over communication with the community, and it was great to talk with your team in depth about these projects, so appreciate that. the community is urging for the intersection of Logan Reserve Road and School Road to be upgraded. Now, this intersection outside Logan Reserve State School is an urgent need. The project is scheduled to begin construction by the end of the month, according to the head contractor. Now, the community is wanting to know if this is on track for construction to start by the end of the month. What does the team have to say?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, councillor. So we have appointed the contractor for that project. The contractor is Sea Civil Constructions, who's a contractor we've used on several projects in recent years. We're down for them to actually be mobilised to site on the 16th of March with an anticipated construction around the 23rd. So we're certainly on track for the end of the month construction, as has been advised to the community.
Okay, so there's that 1 week, and we've had recent rain over the past weekend, which always can impact construction, especially civil work. What are the biggest risks of that 23rd of March deadline being delayed? Is it weather? Is it contracts? What are the risks?
Our biggest risk at this point would be weather. And bear in mind that that contractor will be coming to us from another project site, so they will need to have closeout on that. So that is our biggest risk in regards to that. If we were to see weather continue solidly for another 2 weeks, then we would have difficulty actually getting them onto the site. They might have some difficulty closing out where they're actually leaving to come to us as well.
Thank you. And the intersection of Chambers Flat Road and School Road right now is a dangerous, unsignalised intersection, and there's a plan to install a safety roundabout with wider lanes and better visibility for the community. We have the plans. We have the engineers working on this project.
Yep.
What is the current status of building that roundabout?
So we have power relocations and gas relocations on site at the moment. So we're actually, those agencies are doing those early works for us at the moment. We've been to market for our contractor to actually complete those works and the balance of the works along Chambers Flat Road. We envisage that we will be awarding that work within the next few weeks. And we're anticipating that we'd actually be on site to commence construction work there in July.
Thank you. And the project cost we can see is $79 million for the roundabout and the extension of the width of those lanes. Now, I'm wanting to understand how much money was mentioned in the promised grant funding and how much money has been received in council's bank account.
So at this point in time of the overall project is 79 million, as you mentioned. We have a commitment from the Australian government, so the federal government, at 36.4 million in total. That's paid to us in various milestones over the duration of that project. Our first milestone was at $200,000, which is only a small portion of that early in the piece. Our next milestone is at procurement and detailed design. So given that we've already been out to procurement, we will have the application in for that. It will be a more significant payment to us at that point. So I would imagine we will see another payment to us in the next 1 to 2 months.
So over $35 million is the mentioned grant amount, but in terms of how much money has arrived in council bank accounts, it's only $200,000. Is that correct?
We're at 200,000 on the first milestone, but we make further applications on the milestones as we go along, with the next milestone being the end of detailed design and commencement of procurement, which we're at now.
And how much money has council spent on this project? We've received $200,000. How much have we actually spent so far on this project?
I am sorry, I don't have that figure to hand. I will need to come back to you with that one.
Okay, thank you for the update.
Thank you, Councillor Heremiah. I'll now conclude the meeting at, Yeah, no, he put his hand up. So you got GB? No? I didn't see it. I apologise, Councillor Lane. I usually know when you put your hand up because little fireballs come out of your eyes. Councillor Lane, yours?
Thank you very much, and it's an apt description. Thank you, Chair. So the last committee I asked about Railway Parade going on to a road rehab program. We were relying on that through the faster rail with the adjustments that were supposed to be happening to all the pipes and the what have you, the infrastructure that was going to be dug up around there. That's no longer occurring. So last committee I asked about whether Railway Parade could be put on a list, given we lose a couple of tyres there every week. Do you know if that's started going, Director?
We will have sent that request to, we have a pavement group which is actually made up of engineers across our three roads or our three transport branches. I must admit I haven't received that advice back. I will follow up on that and come back to you. My apologies.
No worries. And last year, Dewars Road suffered a failure in the road resurfacing, and my understanding was it was caused by water ingress into the road structure. It is still failing. Is that on a list? Is it still being investigated? I know that Logan Water did some pipe investigations to see whether any of their pipes had blown their bolt in the area, but they hadn't. Do you know if investigations are still ongoing into Dewars Road? Because some people allege that they're being thrown, their wheels are being thrown as they're driving along from some of the ruts in there.
I
don't agree with them. I drive a little car and mine doesn't, but
I will need to look into that. I do not know that off the cuff. I'm sorry, no.
thanks. Will you be reporting that back before the next committee?
I will do that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. No other GB? Thank you. I conclude the meeting at 11:06 with Councillor Jackson at 11:16 with governance.